Good evening. So today's
Good evening,
topic,
sir.
thank you.
Good evening, sir.
So today's topic is digestive system comparative account in vertebrates. So this is mostly an informative class. There is nothing logical or logic or analytical things involved here. But all these information that I'm going to share with you is most relevant even for civil services prelims if you choose zoology as an optional. Some of the questions may come from this comparative account. So not only digestive system, I will be dealing with the comparative account of all the physiological systems in vertebrates. So let me start this. So yesterday we have discussed that during the evolution of vertebrates, there are certain modifications of alimentary canal. One in the length, the other in the formation of certain enlargements, which are called as diverticula, like cecum, etc., and the formation of internal folds, whether it be in stomach or intestine or any other part. So these we are going to see now. We know that alimentary canal starts with mouth and ends with anus or cloaca. So we'll start with the mouth. Mouth in Greek terminology is called as stoma. So wherever you come across with this term, it is nothing but mouth opening. Generally, everyone mistakes mouth. This is the actual structure of our foregut, where tongue is present here, teeth are present here, etc. etc. And we mistakenly call this cavity where we put our food as mouth. But actually, this is the mouth cavity or oral cavity. Then, what actually mouth is? Mouth is the opening between the two lips. Okay. What about the organisms where the lips are absent? When the lips are absent, it is the opening that leads into the mouth cavity. Okay. So the opening between two lips, which leads into the oral cavity, is called as mouth. And coming to the comparative account of the mouth in different vertebrates, in Amphioxus, there is an opening, and that opening is called as enterostome. Okay, and this enterostome is mistakenly called as mouth by certain others. But we are saying it mistakenly. Why? Because it is not a true mouth. Why it is not a true mouth? True mouth opens into oral cavity, whereas this opens into the pharynx. So this is the mouth opening, this is the oral cavity, and from here the pharynx arises, from where the respiratory passage and the food passage originate. So mouth opening should be present here, but not here. So when you come across with the term enterostome in Amphioxus, you must understand that it's not a true mouth opening. Next, coming to the cyclostomes. In cyclostomes, the mouth is circular. That is the reason why they were given the name cyclostomata. Cyclo means circular, stoma means mouth, eta means bearing. So the organisms which bear a circular mouth are called as cyclostomes, exemplified by Picromyza, Nixon, and others. And here it is a circular opening. Because jaws are absent, this is permanently open. So in cyclostomes, you have to understand 2 points here. One, it is circular and it is permanently open. Coming to the gnathostomes. In most of the gnathostomes, gnathos means jaws, stoma means mouth. So those animals where the mouth is present between the jaws, they are called as gnathostomes. And here in all these organisms, the mouth is terminal, except few organisms. For example, let's take a fish. If the mouth is downwards, we call it as ventral, or when it is almost near the terminus, we call it as subterminal. But in some fishes, the mouth is towards the one end, anterior end. In that case, it is called as a terminal mouth. Exception is that it is ventral in elasmobranchs and also certain other fishes called as sturgeons. Okay. And another feature is that in fishes, amphibians, and most of the reptiles, mouth is surrounded by cornified skin. Cornified skin. And this cornified skin makes it immovable lips. So the lips are immovable in all these organisms, whereas in mammals, including human beings, mouth is said to be an opening between two fleshy and muscular lips. Okay. Then the mouth leads into the buccal cavity, which is also called as oral cavity. It can be called as the gap between mouth opening and the pharynx. So this is the mouth opening, and the throat region is called as pharynx. Between these two, this entire cavity is called as buccal cavity. Okay. Coming to the comparative account of the oral cavity. In gnathostome fishes, the buccal cavity is shallow and it is roofed with dermal bones bearing teeth. So here, this is the roof, and this roof is said to be dermal in origin. That means mesodermal in origin, and it bears teeth. And its main function is passage for food and also water. That means it is responsible for aquatic respiration. Okay. But actually, the respiratory function is related to pharynx. Why I am mentioning is that because oxygen comes through water and this water is delivered to the pharynx through the buccal cavity, we are saying this so. But it doesn't mean that this oral cavity is respiratory in function. And coming to the amphibians and reptiles. The muscular floor of oral cavity serves for swallowing food and also for breathing. We know that when you study frog, in frog, respiration is of three types: cutaneous respiration, buccal respiration, and pulmonary respiration. What does it mean? It means that the buccal cavity also serves as a respiratory structure. So here, in case of amphibians mainly, in some reptiles also, the floor of the buccal cavity is muscular and it is helpful in swallowing food. Not only that, it helps in breathing. Okay. Coming to the oral cavity of the mammals. The oral cavity of the mammals is the place present between the vestibule and the pharynx. So what is vestibule? Let's see. So this is the mouth opening. This is the roof of the buccal cavity. This is the floor of the buccal cavity. And we have teeth here and tongue here. And there is a small gap between the mouth opening and between the teeth. So this small gap is called as vestibule. Okay. So vestibule is the cavity of the buccal cavity itself, we can say so, that is present between the mouth opening and the teeth. And this vestibule leads into the actual oral cavity or buccal cavity in case of mammals. So what is its function? We use our buccal cavity for sucking food as well as chewing because teeth are present located there. And now we come across with another part of this oral cavity, that is nasal sacs. So there is mouth, there is oral cavity. Above the mouth there is nostril that leads into nasal cavity. That opens through internal nostrils into the pharynx. So thus pharynx receives food and water through buccal cavity and oxygen and other respiratory gases through the nasal cavities. Coming to the nasal sacs, these are ectodermal invaginations of the head region. So nasal sacs are ectodermal in origin. Okay. In most of the fishes, it is independent of oral cavity. That means there is no connection between the buccal cavity and the oral cavity. It is closed. But in lungfishes, that is diplovans, amphibians, and most reptiles, here primitive palate is present where nasal cavities open into oral cavity by a pair of internal nostrils called as choanae. So this is the mouth, this is the buccal cavity, and this is external nares and the nasal cavity, and there are internal nostrils through which it communicates with the buccal cavity in case of diplovans, amphibians, and most reptiles. Okay, and here these organisms exhibit what we call it as primitive palate. Whereas coming to the other organisms, birds and mammals, in birds, the it's not plate, it's palate. The palate is cleft. So cleft palate is seen so that nasal and oral cavities are in direct contact. So that means this is the mouth opening, this is the buccal cavity, and this is the nasal cavity, and this nasal cavity is cleft. That means the nasal cavity is in direct contact with the buccal cavity in case of birds. Okay. In case of mammals, the bony palate continues as soft palate from which the uvula hangs. Let me explain this again. So this is the mouth opening, this is the buccal cavity. When you touch the roof of the buccal cavity with your tongue, you find certain hard structure here, which is said to be highly what we call uh, rough in texture. This is followed by a soft one, from which a flap of skin opens into the pharynx. So this flap of skin that opens into the pharynx is called an uvula, and this region, which is very soft, hence it is called as soft palate, and the anterior region, which is rough, is called as hard palate. Okay. So in the first thing itself, when I started the class, I told you that there are certain modifications with respect to the alimentary canal. And one such modification is development of internal folds called as rugae. And here, in case of this palate, there are folds. These folds are called as palatine rugae. These are called as palatine rugae, because of which the palate is said to be rough. Okay, so in case of these organisms, lignans, amphibians, and most reptiles, the anterior part of the buccal cavity, this portion this portion of the palate is called as the primitive palate, and this is followed by the secondary palate. The secondary palate includes both part of the hard palate and soft palate. Okay, so this secondary palate is absent in these organisms, which is developed in case of mammals. This is all about the nasal sacs. And one more part that is present in the buccal cavity is teeth. Teeth are nothing but hard structures and also pointed structures which are attached to the jaw bones. And coming to their origin, teeth are said to be epidermal. Okay, and coming to the teeth can be epidermal or there can be true teeth. The epidermal teeth are not true teeth. Okay, so there are two types of teeth: epidermal teeth and true teeth. Coming to the first one, that is epidermal teeth. We know the skin has said to be 5 layers. The first layer is called as stratum corneum, followed with stratum lucidum, stratum spinosum, etc. etc. So this is the first layer, stratum corneum. When the teeth, the epidermal teeth, skin is said to be having two layers, epidermis and dermis. Yesterday I have discussed it in the first class. Epidermis is derived from ectoderm, the primary germ layer, and dermis is derived from mesoderm. So here, stratum corneum is part of epidermis. Thus, these teeth are ectodermal in origin. Hence, we call them as epidermal or ectodermal teeth. So, these are horny projections of stratum corneum found in cyclostomes, mainly lamprey. Okay, and these are conical in structure or shape in case of tadpoles. In case of duckbills, sirenians, and baleen whales, there are horny plates. These horny plates are also epidermal teeth. And in turtles, sphenodon, the connecting link, crocodiles, birds, and the egg-laying mammals, the monotremes, there are egg tooth. When the all these are egg-laying mammals. So there is an egg. Embryo develops into small adult. So this small adult has to come out of the shell. In order to break the shell, it uses certain epidermal teeth. These epidermal teeth are called as egg teeth or egg tooth. So egg teeth are used for breaking the shell in case of all these organisms. And all these different kinds of teeth present in turtles, sphenodon, crocodiles, birds, monotremes, duckbills, baleen whales, tadpoles, and cyclostomes. All these are examples for epidermal teeth. And coming to the second type of teeth, these are called as true teeth. They are present in all vertebrates, but they are absent in certain vertebrates called as agnatans, sturgeons, some toads, sirens, which are also amphibians, turtles, and modern birds. So you have to remember that in all these organisms, the true teeth are absent. And coming to the types of true teeth, you all might be knowing this terminology. Let me remind you again once again. The teeth can be polyphyodont, acrodont, homodont in case of fishes, exemplified by shark, and amphibians exemplified by frog. So what is polyphyodont? Teeth are replaced many times in the life history of an individual. Then what are acrodont? Teeth are attached to the edges of the jaws. When they are attached to the edges of the jaws, they are called as acrodont teeth. Homodont teeth are that all the teeth are of same type, and then all the teeth are similar. It is called as homodont. These are seen in fishes and amphibians. Coming to the amphibians, other than the in amphibia there are three orders: Anura, Apoda, and Urodela. So Apoda is said to be legless amphibians. Anura are tailless amphibians. Urodela are tailed amphibians. So urodeles are like salamanders and newts. They are urodeles. They are tailed amphibians. That means a salamander with a tail and legs. In these organisms, it is polyphyodont and homodont, but teeth are not attached to the edges of jaws, but rather they are attached to the inner sides of the jaws. Hence, they are called as pleurodont teeth. So, the dentition in urodeles and lizards is polyphyodont, pleurodont, and homodont. Coming to the mammals, especially humans, the structure of the tooth or teeth in case of human beings is compared to the top of the placoid scale of shark. Why? Because the placoid scale is tridentate. It shows a pulp cavity, and we also having a pulp cavity, and it shows dentine. We also have a dentine. The only difference being presence of an enamel coat here. So here, the structure of the shark placoid scale is found to be similar to the structure of the mammal. And coming to the human beings, the dentition is dipyodont. Teeth are formed only twice. Heterodont teeth are different types like incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. Thecodont teeth are said to be present in sockets. And the same thecodont dentition is also seen in crocodiles along with human beings. And in case of other mammals, there are so many types of dentition, like cecodont dentition. Cecodont dentition, which is characteristic of carnivores. Like lophodont dentition, where lophos are present in the teeth. That is characteristic of elephants. Triconodont dentition, trituberculate dentition. So there are so many types that we deal with dentition in mammals. We will be dealing with that. For this comparative code, this much information is sufficient here. And the next part present in the oral cavity, apart from the nasal sacs, teeth, there is what we call it as tongue. In case of cyclostomes, the tongue is thick, fleshy, extensive, and it acts as a rasping organ. That means it is responsible for cutting. Okay, like the radula pila, which is a rasping organ. In cyclostomes, tongue is a rasping organ. In case of fishes and certain amphibians called as necturus, the tongue is said to be primary tongue. Why it is called as a primary tongue? Because muscles are absent here. Because muscles are absent, only receptors are said to be present here. Hence, it is called as a primary tongue. And another feature of this is said to be it is immobile. The primary tongue is without muscles, hence it is immobile. Okay, and though it is immobile, it serves as a sensory organ. And coming to the frogs, toads, and salamanders. Here it is called as a definite tongue. The tongue is said to be definite. Why it is definite? Because it is, in case of other organisms also it is definite, where it is attached on one end. The difference between us and the frogs, toads, and salamanders is it is attached at the foot. In case of us, it is attached posteriorly. In case of frogs, it is attached anteriorly. So it is attached to the anterior end and free at the posterior end. That means when the tongue and the frog wants to move the tongue, it is coming in this direction. Okay, being attached towards the anterior end, it takes the insect and goes back to the normal position. And to take the insect along with the tongue, here the tongue is said to be sticky, having mucus secretion. And in case of turtles, crocodiles, birds, and whales, the tongue is said to be immobile. And coming to the snakes, some lizards, and anteaters, the tongue is long, highly protracted, helpful in food capture. In case of certain poisonous snakes, the tongue is bifid. It is bifid. That means it is like a fork towards one anterior end. And in case of mammals, it is attached to the floor by a ligament. The ligament by which the tongue is attached to the floor of the buccal cavity in case of mammals is called as frenulum. Okay. And coming to the last part of the oral cavity, that is oral glands. Oral glands are nothing but salivary glands. Generally, there are four types of salivary glands. One is infraorbital gland. The second one is parotid gland. Third one is submaxillary or submandibular gland.
Subli-
And fourth one, sublingual gland. So these are the general salivary glands or oral glands. In case of fishes and aquatic amphibians, these are simple mucus glands. They secrete only mucus. In case of poisonous snakes, the salivary glands are modified to form the poison glands, poisonous glands. And the third part of the alimentary canal. The mouth leads into buccal cavity leads into pharynx. The pharynx is the region between the buccal cavity and the esophagus. So this part forms the pharynx. In case of fishes, when we draw a fish, when we draw a fish, we show slits here. So what these slits are? The mouth leads into buccal cavity. Buccal cavity opens into a large chamber that is pharynx. The pharynx has openings in its walls and these openings are called as gill slits so that whatever the water enters through the mouth, oral cavity, pharynx, it comes out through the slits. As it comes out through the slits, the slit is said to be, if this is the slit, it is having two walls and both these walls are said to be supplied with capillaries which are helpful in exchange of gases resulting in respiration. That is the reason why pharynx with gill slits, it is called as pharyngeal gill slits. Okay, and it helps in aquatic respiration in case of fishes. In case of tetrapods, that means starting from amphibians followed by reptiles, birds, and mammals, the pharynx is very short junction between respiratory and food passages. So in us, there is no significant place for the pharynx. It's a small gap present in the throat region between the oral cavity and esophagus. Only in case of fishes, it is a spacious chamber for respiration. And the mouth cavity, which leads into pharynx, through pharynx, it leads to esophagus. So, esophagus starts from the neck, follows through the thoracic cavity. In case of mammals, it pierces the diaphragm, enters the abdomen, and ends up in stomach. So, esophagus is a tube present between pharynx and stomach region. Okay. So, what about the length of the esophagus? The length of the esophagus is related to the length of the neck. Then, what about the amphibians like frog, which is not having any neck? So, when there is no neck, the esophagus is very short. Almost we say that it is said to be absent. In case of fishes and amphibians, which are neckless, not necklace, it is neckless. Here, the esophagus is said to be very short. So, in case of organisms, amniotes, where there is a long neck, esophagus is also longer. Okay. And one more feature is that we, when we study the histology of the alimentary canal, we say about 4 layers, isn't it? Histologically, stomach or intestine is made up of 4 layers. The outer layer is called as serosa. But serosa is said to be a peritoneal membrane which is present in the abdominal cavity. But because esophagus is outside the abdomen, because it is present outside the abdomen, serosa, the outer layer, is said to be absent. So, in case of esophagus, serous coat is absent as it lies outside the ceiling. There are certain modifications. Okay, the first slide I have shown you, there is a change in the length with respect to the certain parts of the alimentary canal which we have just noticed it, and there are certain modifications with respect to certain parts of the alimentary canal. So, in case of birds like pigeon which feeds on grains, the esophagus is folded to form a pair of sac-like structures, and these sac-like structures constitute crop. So whatever the pigeon feeds on the grains come and they are stored here. So the crop, which is an extension between the two ends of the esophagus, is said to be helpful in storage of food. Okay. And one more thing is that the inner epithelium of the crop is what we call removed, and it forms into milk-like structure, milk-like secretion, and that milk-like secretion is called as crop milk, and that is used for feeding the young in case of pigeon. And one more characteristic feature of this is that the anterior part has striped muscles. The anterior part has striped muscles. Posterior part has unstriped means smooth muscles, and the middle part has both striated, that means skeletal muscle like this, and unstriped or striped, unstriped or smooth muscles. So anterior is having only striated muscle, Posterior is having only non-striated or smooth muscle, and the middle part of the esophagus is having both types of muscles. Okay, and coming to the next part of the alimentary canal, the stomach enters the abdomen and opens into the esophagus enters the abdomen and opens into the stomach region. We know that there are peritoneal structures called as mesenteries, dorsal mesentery and ventral mesentery, which hold the alimentary canal in place inside the abdomen. And for stomach, there is another dorsal mesentery extension that is called as mesogaster. Write it down. So the stomach is held in place by a part of the dorsal mesentery, which is called as mesogaster. What is the function of the stomach? Stomach, we say that just that it is responsible for digestion. But actually, digestion can be chemical digestion can be mechanical also. So stomach is the region where can someone stop their mic? Divya Sai, thank you. Okay, so there is chemical digestion, which involves enzymes. Mechanical digestion, which involves churning of food or grinding of food material. For the churning or grinding of food material, what is required? The wall requires strong muscles. So stomach is made up of strong muscles. Hence, it is responsible for maceration of food. The second is before it enters the intestine, it is temporarily stored and partially digested. So there are three functions related to stomach here. Temporary storage of food, maceration or churning or mechanical digestion of food, and preliminary chemical digestion of food. And coming to the modifications of it, or presence or absence. True stomach is absent in protocortex, that means urocortex and cephalocortex. In both, true stomach is absent. In addition to this, cyclostomes, lungfishes, and some primitive bony fishes, that is teleos, also true stomach is absent. So when we say that stomach is absent, we can say that it is an ancestral trait. Then what is true stomach? The stomach with its epithelial lining having gastric gland is called as stomach, true stomach. So stomach will be called as true stomach only when it has gastric glands in its epithelial lining. And coming to the shape of the stomach, it is having different shape in different organisms. It is straight. We're going to see the diagram in the latter slide. It is straight like this. In case of cyclostomes, uh, what we call certain other organisms like gar, balloon, and salamanders, it is spindle shaped. It is spindle shaped in case of Proteus, Necturus, snakes, and lizards. It is curved in case of turtles and tortoises, whereas in case of human beings, along with shark, that is elasmobranchs, gobius, and seals, it is we say that it is J-shaped, or as it forms a U shape with esophagus, it is U shaped. There are two curvatures here, a greater curvature and lesser curvature, because of which it becomes U shaped or J shaped in case of Islas rubans, gobius, seal, and humans. So these things you can observe here. In case of turtles, it is curved. So it is a curved tube. In case of human beings, it is J shaped. In case of Urodales and others, it is just a straight tube. Whereas in case of Proteus, nectar, snakes, and lizards, it is said to be somewhat spindle shape. So thus the stomach is having several different shapes, and in mostly this shape is asked for in examinations. And coming to the parts of the stomach is divided differently in different organisms. In crocodiles and the birds which eat seeds, okay, the anterior part of the stomach is called as proventriculus, and the posterior part of the stomach is called as gizzard or ventriculus. So here there is a proventriculus and there is a gizzard. In case of earthworm also, in case of earthworm also, you come across with the term gizzard. In earthworms, gizzard is responsible for mechanical digestion of food. Likewise, here also it is responsible for mechanical digestion because it is highly muscular. Gizzard is said to be highly muscular, hence it is responsible for mechanical digestion. So this part is posterior, which is called as gizzard or ventriculus. The anterior part is said to be proventriculus. This anterior part is said to be having gastric glands. So we can say that it is the true stomach. And thus, both these parts together constitute the stomach in case of crocodiles, seed-eating birds. One more feature of the gizzard in these organisms, seed-eating birds means, let's say an example of pigeon. In pigeon, the gizzard has small pebble-like structures, stone pieces, and these are called as gastrolis. So, because grains are said to be hard structures, they have to be broken down before they get digested. So here, the gizzard with its muscular nature and gastroliths inside is responsible for breaking down the seeds or grains. And in case of mammals, it is called as cardiac stomach, fundus, and pylori. So the stomach is divided into three parts. But when you see from outside, it appears to be a single chamber. But histologically, the first part, last part. So the last part and first part. The first part, because it is close to the heart, it is called as cardiac stomach. The last part, which leads into small intestine, is called as pyloric stomach. And the middle part, which has a greater curvature, is called as fundus. And this is the region where actually the gastric glands are present. The gastric glands are present in fundus region. Then what about the cardiac and pyloric stomach? The cardiac stomach is also having cardiac glands. Pyloric stomach is having pyloric glands. Both of which secrete mucus mainly. And fundus region is having the actual gastric glands which secrete along with the mucus water the enzymes also. And coming to the ruminants, what are the ruminants? The organisms which chew their cud. That means they eat the grass, store it in the stomach. After going to their home, they bring it back to their mouth and start chewing it. And thus they are called as cud chewing animals or as ruminants. In ruminants, there are four chambers. So there is one chamber starting from the esophagus, which is mouth buccal cavity, followed by esophagus. Esophagus leads into the first chamber, that is called as rumen. It leads into a second chamber, that is called as reticulum, followed by a third chamber, omasum, and finally the fourth chamber, which leads into the duodenum. So thus there are four chambers. Out of these, the first three chambers, rumen, reticulum, omasum, they are considered as modifications of the esophagus. Modifications of the esophagus. So because they are modifications of the esophagus, they do not have gastric glands. So thus, they are responsible only for storage. Okay. And the last part, that is abomasum, which is also called as rennet. This is having gastric glands and is digestive in function. Okay. In some books, it is written that rumen is the storage part and reticulum, vomasum, and asbamasum. As the food moves through this, here the food is digested. But actual truth is that here abomasum is said to be digestive in function. And coming to the other modifications, in case of camel, omasum is absent. That means rumen is there, reticulum is there, the third one is absent, abomasum is present. So, omasum, we can say that it is not digestive in function because it is absent there. For digestion to take place, abomasum is required. And rumen and reticulum, which we are saying that it is responsible for storage, in case of camel, there are certain specialized cells which are called as water cells. So previously, scientists believed that these water cells are responsible for secretion of water because it is a desert living organism. Later, scientists found that these are not water cells. These are cells which are responsible for digestion. So, though they are responsible for digestion, previous term water cells is said to be retained there. Next. There are certain bats which suck the blood of the prey. And here, the pyloric stomach is enlarged. So, cardiac, fundus, and pyloric. So, this pyloric region is said to be enlarged where the blood is said to be stored in case of blood sucking bats. And coming to the egg laying mammals, that is monotremes or prototherians, here the true stomach is said to be absent. And coming to the next part of the alimentary canal. So the stomach leads into intestine. The first part of the intestine, which forms a loop and gets coiled, is called as small intestine. And the first part of the small intestine, which is in direct contact with the stomach, is called as duodenum. In case of mammals, it is followed by jejunum, and in case of other organisms, it is followed by ileum. So there is duodenum and ileum in almost all vertebrates. In case of mammals, especially human beings, there is a middle part which we call it as jejunum. But scientists say that there is no external demarcation between these three parts. Duodenum continues as jejunum, continuing as ileum. But why we are saying this? Only because of histological difference. So let's see what actually is modifications seen with respect to small intestine in different vertebrates. In cyclostomes, elasmobranchs, primitive bony fishes like sturgeon and polyodon, the small intestine is just straight, very short, and wide too. Okay, and we have seen one modification with respect to palate. They are called as palatine rugae. In case of stomach also, there are folds inside. They are also called as rugae. The inner folds of stomach are also called as rugae. Whereas, in case of these cyclostomes and fishes, because the intestine is said to be short, here there is no surface area for the absorption of food. So in order to increase the surface area of absorption, here there is a spiral wall present in the small intestine, and that is called as typhloso. So this is one you have to remember. So typhlosil is also called as spiral wall, which is present in cyclostomes, shark, that is elasmobranchs, sturgeon, and polyodon, certain primitive bony fishes. Its main function is to increase the absorptive area. And coming to the bony fishes, in bony fishes, the small intestine does not have any typhloso. Typhloso is absent. And coming to the large intestine. Large intestine, in case of fishes and amphibians, is wider than the small intestine. So if it is small intestine, the large intestine is said to be somewhat wider, and this leads into cloaca. Yesterday I have explained you this thing. What is cloaca? It is the chamber through which the digestive system, the excretory system, the reproductive system, all three is opening. Okay. So except bony fishes, where large intestine ends with anus, in all the fishes and amphibians, large intestine leads into cloaca. In case of reptiles and birds, large intestine is divided into colon and rectum, which leads into cloaca. In case of mammals, it is divided into colon and rectum, which leads into anus. That is the difference. So, in case of mammals, like birds and reptiles, it is divided into colon and rectum. The first part is colon, the second part is rectum, and this rectum leads into anus in case of mammals. Whereas the primitive mammals, that is prototherians or monotremes, here instead of anus, there is cloaca present. Okay, coming to the colon and rectum. So let's say this is the small intestine, which leads into colon, that leads into rectum. Okay, scientists and the rectum leads into cloaca. So where the cloaca is present, okay, the rectum, according to scientists, here it is a partitioning. The cloaca is said to be partitioned to form the rectum. That means the anterior partition of the cloaca during the embryonic development, though it is cloaca, by the time adult is formed, the anterior part of the cloaca becomes the rectum. And hence, the rectum of birds and reptiles is not homologous to the rectum of these organisms. Okay. Next, coming to the junction between the small intestine and large intestine. So, small intestine is there and large intestine is there. So, at the junction of the small intestine and large intestine, we come across with the third modification, that is enlargement of diverticula. In case of tetrapods, starting from amphibians to mammals, here there is a valve at the junction of ileum, that means duodenum, jejunum, ileum, the last part of the small intestine, colon, rectum, the first part of the large intestine. There is cecum, colon here, ileocecal valve or ileocolic sphincter present in case of tetrapods. And this ileocecal valve or ileocolic sphincter is absent in fishes. Another modification is that there is between the small intestine and large intestine, there is a chamber, and this chamber is called as cecum. And this cecum is found in all amniotes. Its main function is that it harbors bacteria which digest cellulose, because most of these are said to be herbivores, and in these herbivores, when they feed on plant food, the plant food has to be having lot of cellulose, it has to be digested. So cecum is the one which is responsible for digesting cellulose in case of we can say herbivorous mammals, herbivorous animals. In case of birds, there are two ceca. At the ileocolic junction, there are two ceca. In others, there is only one ceca. Okay. And coming to the cecum, the cecum is said to be very small in case of man. Sorry, man, this is not man, and also monkeys and apes, that means all primates, which ends up with the vermivore appendix. And coming to the additional structures, and these two we have to write down and remember. In case of elasmobranchs, that is cartilaginous fishes. Attached to the intestine, that means large intestine, there is a structure. This is the large intestine. This is small intestine. Here there is a structure called as rectal gland. Okay. So attached to the rectal region there is rectal gland. Rectal gland, according to scientists, is nothing but cecum. And this cecum is responsible for the secretion of sodium chloride. So this it is an osmoregulatory mechanism maybe. The cecum that secretes sodium chloride in case of elasmobranchial fishes associated with the large intestine is called as rectal gland. The last thing is in case of birds. So alimentary canal leads into cloaca. Attached to the cloaca, there is a special structure. And this special structure is called as bursa of Fabricius. Bursa of Fabricius, the significance of which you all know. It is the place where the B lymphocytes are synthesized. Okay. And based on this bursa, the term B lymphocytes is given to that. So here, cloaca is the region where infection is, it is an infection prone region because three different tracts are opening there. So in order to arrest infection, here the lymphatic tissue is said to be present. So this blind pouch with lymphatic tissue is called as bursa fabricius because it is attached to the cloaca and like thymus, it forms lymphocytes. It is called as cloacal thymus. It is present only in young birds, which gets degenerated in the adult. Okay, these are the additional modifications. Coming to the last part of this class, that is digestive glands. And the first gland is said to be liver, which is the largest gland. Liver originates from duodenum. We know that stomach is there. Stomach leads into duodenum. So at the junction of these two, there is pancreas and there is a liver, which is also connected to the duodenum. So both pancreas and duodenum, as they are connected to duodenum, we say that both of them originate from duodenum itself. So liver originates as one diverticulum or one pouch or two pouches. When coming to the protochordates, that is urochordate and cephalochordata, true liver is said to be absent. So protochordates are followed by, that means urochordates are followed by cephalochordates. In cephalochordates, we come across with another structure called as hepatic cecum. But the hepatic cecum is not a liver. And coming to the cyclostomes, that is lampreys and hagfishes, petromyzon and mixin. In petromyzon, it is single lobed, whereas in mixin, the liver is said to be bilobed. And one more feature is that liver is large in carnivores relatively, not actual exactly, relatively when compared with, relatively large in carnivores when compared with the herbivores. And coming to another structure, that is gallbladder associated with the liver. Gallbladder is present in hagfishes and all higher vertebrates. It is absent in petromyzon, that is lampreys. It is absent in some birds like pigeon and also rats, hyrax, whales, archaeodactyls, and perissodactyls. So in all these, that means horses, etc. In all these organisms, gallbladder is absent. Gallbladder is not essential for any living being. It can be when there is gallstones here, you can easily remove it and you can survive also. So gallbladder is not an essential part of the body. If we have certain infections or gallstones, we can remove it. And coming to the last one, that is pancreas. It also arises from duodenum and also from liver. So from liver birds, two parts arise. One is dorsal, the other is ventral. The dorsal part of the pancreas arises from, sorry, the ventral part of the pancreas arises from liver birds and the dorsal part arises from the duodenum. That is the reason why pancreas is having dual function. One, it is exocrine, the other is endocrine. We can attribute it to this origin of the pancreas itself. And in fishes, it is divided into dorsal pancreas as well as ventral pancreas. But in all tetrapods, starting from amphibians to reptiles, it is both the dorsal and ventral pancreas during the course of evolution got merged to form a united single structure. And this pancreas is absent in lancelet. What is a lancelet? It is nothing but amphioxus. So in case of amphioxus, the pancreas is said to be absent. So with this, we come to the end of today's class. That is the comparative account of digestive system, different parts of the digestive system. So if anybody wants me to deliver the same in Telugu medium, I'm ready to explain it in Telugu medium. Hope you
Yes, sir.
understood. తెలుగు మీడియంలో చెప్పమంటారండి సరిపోయిందా?
If you don't mind bilingual చెప్తే బాగుంటుంది.
సార్ బైలాంగ్వేజ్ చెప్తే బాగుంటుంది సార్.
నేను బైలింగ్వల్ చెప్తేనే కొంతమంది మాకు అంతా తెలుగులో చెప్తున్నారు అంటున్నారు. నేను ఒక ఇంగ్లీష్ కొంచెం తెలుగు కొంచెం చెప్తాను కదా.